but he's never run anything. He's never done anything really other than he is dynamic, he is charismatic, and he can pull people along. He's a populist wokey, right? And they can carry young people with them right to the point of the reality check. I get the affordability thing. I get the fact young people are angry. They can't pay for stuff. They can't get rentals and so on. Of course, I get why they gravitate to somebody who says, I'm going to sort all this out. You're going to get all this stuff for free. But we know that doesn't work. There's nowhere in the world you can point to where socialism of the kind that he is spewing actually can work.
Piers Morgan.
Hey, Rubin.
Here we go. We have two interviewers, and I'm going to interview you, although you never know. You could flip it on me at any moment, so anything could happen here.
Last time I was in Miami, I was interviewing a serial killer for a crime documentary. I'm getting a very similar vibe.
Well, as you
but
know,
at any moment, you might try and lunge at me.
I am noted as like the serial murderer of interviewers. So, no, I'm glad to see you. Obviously, we've done each other's shows many, many times. Yeah. There's plenty of things we agree on, disagree on. I want to kind of dive in on everything. But first, let's talk about the book for a moment, because it's called Woke is Dead. And I was thinking it's an interesting title at this moment, because it seems to me in New York right now, woke has just come back in the most nefarious, almost final form way, the combination of kind of woke and Islamism and communism and all that stuff. And then on the other side of it, Trump has eliminated a lot of woke. So tell me about sort of where the title came from and what do you make of...
Well, it's more an aspiration, if I'm honest. I make the point in the book. I don't actually think it's dead yet. I think we're going to be playing whack-a-mole with wokeism for a while yet. There are a lot of people who haven't got the memo. Mr. Mamdani is one of them. But I do think the public tolerance of wokeism is massively collapsing. I mean, look at Sydney Sweeney, right, for example. As we're talking, she gave an interview to GQ. A GQ interviewer.
We'll put her boobs up on B-roll.
Right. Yeah. And the GQ interviewer clearly wanted her to apologise for the jeans ad. And Sydney Sweeney was having none of it. What's happened to Sydney Sweeney since that attempt to cancel her over that ad? She's only got infinitely more famous and more successful. That's an example of what I mean by woke being dead. 2-3 years ago, she might well have been cancelled. Now, people are standing up going, I've had enough of this. And actually, anybody else who stands up to it, I'm going to support them, whether it's through buying their albums or going to their movies or whatever. I'm seeing a lot more of that. In England, a survey came out today, actually, reported in the Times of London, and it showed that the way the public in Britain view wokeism has markedly shifted in the last 4 years. So there's twice as many people now think that wokeism is a slur, not something as a badge of honor. So it was 24% thought that in 2020. Now it's 48%. Again, you're just seeing a rising tide of the way people view wokeism as now something that's more of a slur than it was something to be proud of being.
What do you make of the Mamdani version of it, that we went from woke, like all the gender nonsense and everyone's racist and all that stuff, which I'm completely with you. We've, the political correctness around that has largely shattered, but that now it has sort of burst forth into what its end game was, which was really socialism or Marxism or whatever, communism, whatever you want to call it.
In a way, you're seeing a battle with the heart and soul of the Democrats, I think, looking at it from the outside. New York is a Democrat city. The only two candidates who could possibly have won that were both Democrats. One's a moderate, Cuomo, and one's obviously progressive, far-left, brazen socialist, Mamdani. I think a lot of it was a bad choice of candidate on the moderate side. We have the same thing in the UK. That's why Sadiq Khan keeps being elected as mayor of London, because the Conservatives keep putting up absolute doofuses against him. I think you could say the same. I think Cuomo was damaged goods, shouldn't have been the candidate against him on the moderate side. The other winners for the Democrats, interestingly, that night were mainly moderates, not the progressive left. So you're seeing somebody who is dynamic. He's very charismatic. He's very dynamic. He has never run a whelk stall. Are you familiar with whelk stalls?
No, but he's never run anything, so I'll go with you on that. East End of London,
they sell whelks. They're like little cockled eels, right? He's never even run one of those. It's like a joke we do in England, right? You've not even run a whelk stall. Right. Actually quite hard to run a whelk stall. But he's never run anything. He's never done anything really other than he is dynamic, he is charismatic, and he can pull people along. He's a populist wokey, right? And they can carry young people with them right to the point of the reality check. I get the affordability thing. I get the fact young people are angry. They can't pay for stuff. They can't get rentals and so on. Of course, I get why they gravitate to somebody who says, I'm going to sort all this out. You're going to get all this stuff for free. But we know that doesn't work. There's nowhere in the world you can point to where socialism of the kind that he is spewing actually can work. In the end, he'll just have to do what the Labour Party is now doing to people in Britain, which is they promise the earth, and now they're making everybody pay the earth for it.
So my fear is that New York is going to become London. Like, I'm really not.
London's not as bad as you guys all think it is.
I mean, every time I go, it seems worse. Now, not in terms of necessarily government control over everything, but you have a huge, I would say, Islamist or jihadist problem. It seems to me that every time I go, it's more visible and more obvious. Clearly, there's some sort of cultural problem on the street. There's also a free speech issue in your country, which I want to talk about. But explain to me, if London's not as bad as we think it is, what's the disconnect?
London, I mean, I always tell my American friends to put it in context on the Islamist issue. It is true. There are, I think, 80-something Sharia courts have been reported to exist in the UK.
So you have courts that exist.
Yeah, but they're not legally binding outside of their own communities, right?
Sure, but
it's not something people feel comfortable about, because you obviously don't want rival laws being established in your own country where people in that community do not obey your own laws but abide by their own. Obviously, that's untenable. We have a lot of Muslims in Britain, most of whom have assimilated extremely well and exist perfectly well with everybody else and exist very peacefully. But inevitably, the more people you have from any community, the more issues you're going to have, which are not so good. And you've seen that in certain parts of Britain now. I think there's a general sense of communities where you feel like there's a clash ideologically between these communities and, I guess you would say, old-fashioned British communities. And I think that's where the flashpoint has come. A lot of that is down to successive governments, conservative and left, I think, having appalling issues in how they regulated immigration. And it goes back to Tony Blair in the early 2000s, actually, the original problem. He opened the floodgates to Eastern Europe, actually. But then the floodgates opened everywhere. Then you've got illegal migrants coming over on the southern border on these small boats from France. That's become a huge problem. None of them can tackle. But legal migration, I think net migration in 2024 was nearly 1 million people. Now, to put it in context, you're a country of 340 million people. We're a country of just under 70 million people. Right? We're a fifth of the size of the United States. And yet we are having a net migration in 1 year of 1 million people. That's a huge burden to put on the infrastructure of our country.
So what do you think the resolution of that is? The reason I'm not bullish on the UK in general is that I see no resolution other than what will ultimately be a violent resolution.
Well, I think people talk about civil war or something. I don't think it's going to come to that. But I do think you need to have a much tougher government run immigration system than we have currently, both legal and illegal. The big problem with the legal migration, we were letting people in who were highly skilled and might contribute well to society, but we allowed them to bring almost unlimited dependence with them. So they were bringing huge numbers of their family with them. And this puts incredible pressure on things like the National Health Service. Well, the National Health Service, the NHS, which was the pride of the world, actually. You know, if you go and break a leg in London next time you're over, God forbid, I don't want you to, and I'm not going to be breaking it for you. But if you broke your leg in London, you would get free healthcare in a very good hospital immediately.
We've got some decent hospitals here. We'll take care of it.
Yeah, but I remember...
If you twist your ankle on the way out...
No, hang on. I remember breaking some ribs falling off a Segway, of all things. Can you believe how embarrassing that was? Of a Segway that's pretty bad. Santa Monica. And all I remember is I was fitting in and out. I collapsed my lung, broke 5 ribs. It was horrendous. I was fitting in and out of consciousness. And all I remember is a guy in a suit with a form saying, can you pay for this, right? You don't get that in England, right? If that same thing happens in England, we treat you, Dave Rubin, we repair you, and that's it. So,
well, they would have treated you either way. They might have just thrown you to a different hospital.
Right.
They looked at you, they were like, this guy looks...
But they wanted my money.
Got some cash.
And that's a cultural difference. So we're used to the National Health Service. At its best, it's amazing. But it was designed in the 50s for a population of 50 million people. We now have a population of nearly 70 million. So that's happened in 75 years. So the infrastructure of the NHS is creaking at the seams. If you start adding 1 million more people a year coming in, wherever they're coming from, you're going to start having huge pressure on the NHS, on the education system, on other public services. And it feels like Britain to me. The real problem, it feels like it's creaking at the seam.
If you're tired of the mainstream media circus and want more honest conversations, go check out our media playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a wide variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.